Who doesn't love a good murder mystery? And we are getting a murder mystery in Hearthstone. Let's take a look at Hearthstone's newest expansion announcement, Murder at Castle Nathria. All right, yep, it's that time again. Time for another Hearthstone expansion announcement. And this time, the team has put out an announcement about not only a castle and what might be vampires, gargoyles, not sure exactly what they'll include, but it definitely is about a murder mystery. And I love this. I'm definitely a fan of like murder mystery type stuff, so I'm super excited for this. But one of the big things is there's a couple of new things, so we'll talk about those. But let's talk about kind of the overall story real quick. So it's a murder mystery at this castle, Nathria. Sire Denathrius has been murdered, and each of the 10 classes will be getting one legendary that is the suspect that was at the castle at the time of Sire Denathrius's murder. So we already know each class is going to be getting a legendary kind of focused around this theme. But with this, there's also something else that's super cool, an entirely new card type, locations. Now let's take a look at these. The first is Sanguine Depths. It is the warrior location. And these are really interesting. They have this durability that you can see here, but they're going to enter the battlefield and you actually get to use them one time for free each turn. So I guess kind of like a hero power that, if your hero power were free, but very similar to a weapon, I suppose. You play it out that first time for that initial cost, and then you get to use that durability once per turn. So this Sanguine Depths, deal 1 damage to a minion and give it +1 attack. All right, it feels pretty unassuming, but the added attack is pretty sweet. The next one that they showed is for Shaman, Muck pools. It says transform a friendly minion into one that costs 1 more. Evolve Shaman is back? Maybe. But these locations are really cool. I'm really interested to see how these actually play into the game, how they end up being useful. I think the combination of being able to have such a variety of things, quests and or quest lines, hero cards, these locations, weapons, there's a ton of different things that they've been adding to the game now. So I'm really curious to see how locations feel. And they did say that every class will be getting their own location, which represents where that legendary, the suspect, was at the time of the murder. So it also will synergize. So I'm kind of guessing that the legendaries for the warrior and shaman will probably match these cards, but can't wait to see those. Now, talking about the new keyword, because there's always a new keyword. The new keyword is infuse. And this is kind of interesting. It's talking about anima, which is like drawn from Wayward Souls, powers, all of Shadowlands. So this is, again, leaning more into the WoW kind of storyline and WoW history that many people may not know. But infuse in Hearthstone is pretty interesting. It is, I feel like, very similar to an avenge type of effect that we have in Battlegrounds. But basically, after the specified number of friendly minions die, while that infuse card is in your hand, that infuse card will transform into something more powerful. It will get that infuse effect. So, for example, we're going to take a look at a neutral card here. Priest of the Deceased has that infuse 3 to gain +2/+2. So while the Priest of the Deceased is in your hand and you have 3 friendly minions die, then after those 3 minions die, friendly minions, by the way, I'm going to keep repeating that, has to be friendly minions, then Priest of the Deceased will essentially be a 2 mana 4/5 taunt. The other infuse card that they showed is Rogue, a rogue spell, and it's called Door of Shadows. It's a shadow spell. Draw a spell and infuse 2, add a temporary copy of it to your hand. So this is pretty interesting. After you you'll get to draw a spell, but if you had 2 minions, friendly minions die while this was in your hand, you'll get an additional copy of that spell that you drew. And I think Rogue, especially with this effect, is really, really interesting because there's a lot of already cheap spells in Rogue, so it feels decently likely. Obviously, we don't know all of the cards for this expansion yet, but based on what we do have, it feels pretty decently likely that you'll be able to probably play both of the spells, the regular one and the copy that you get. Plus, this Door of Shadows itself is only 1 mana. So I think there's going to be a lot of potential there. I'm really curious to see this one. Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about these suspects. These are the legendaries that each class will have. And the neutral legendary is Murloc Holmes himself. He is the one investigating and trying to figure out who actually murdered Sire Denathrius. So Murloc Holmes is a 3-mana 3/4 Murloc. Battlecry, solve 3 clues about your opponent's cards to get copies of them. That is very, very interesting. I think this is really cool. This plays into a lot of the flavor of Sherlock Holmes and also just Murlocs, but I'm really curious to see what kind of decks this goes into, as it is a neutral, with trying to get clues about your opponent's cards and get copies of them. That's, maybe not very prevalent in some metas, but I'm sure people will at least try it out. So Baroness Vash is really interesting because if this would transform into a minion, you summon that minion instead. So you actually get to keep Baroness Vash and get an additional minion if she were to transform. So I think the synergy here between using her and that Muck pools is really kind of interesting. Maybe you get to have multiple minions on the board. So curious to see how that one works. And the other legendary that we see is Decimator Ulgra, a 6-mana 3/7 warrior legendary with a battlecry, gain +1/+1 for each damaged minion, then attack all enemies. So again, this does kind of work with that location that we see for warrior of dealing a damage to a minion and giving it attack. So Decimator Ulgra is going to be able to attack or gain stats for those damaged minions and then be able to attack enemies. This one is really interesting. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting card to see how people play it, and I think it's going to be really dependent how people play it on the board states. Not only for the damaged aspect, but also because it specifically says attack all enemies. Not just enemy minions, this can attack the enemy face as well. And so I'm really curious to see if people use this as more of a wide board clear against smaller minions, if people try to use this when there's only 1 or 2 things on the board so that it can live through attacking the minions and then get to attack face. I'm just really curious to see how this one works. And the last legendary that everyone will be able to get for free, that's going to be in-game once you log in, is also very interesting and something they haven't done before. It's Prince Ranathial. Now, this is interesting. Your deck size and starting health are 40. We've seen similar things with the health, but never the deck size. This one, I'm really interested to see. I think it's going to have a huge impact immediately in the game, but I'm not sure how it will play out once the expansion actually launches. But usually with these cards that come in before the expansion, they have some sort of impact immediately. So I'm really curious to see what people do with a 40 card deck. And I love this concept. So I'm really excited to see how this one turns out. And lastly, as always, of course, they have the bundles. Now, I don't have any information at this time, but I can tell you around expansion time, I always do some sort of giveaway, usually a few. So if you aren't already, I would definitely love if you could not only give this video a thumbs up, but also if you could subscribe to the channel so you can stay tuned for when I do have information to give you about giveaways, because I do love doing giveaways, always do at least some sort of bundle. And then when the expansion launches, I usually do a Tavern Pass giveaway as well. So hit that subscribe, thumbs up, and comment below. Let me know what you think of this expansion. And I'm excited for this murder mystery. I cannot wait to see more. Thank you so much for checking out this video. And for even more tips, tricks, and strategies, make sure you check out the playlist here.